Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien versus Predator Galaxy podcast. This is Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks, and joining me are my fellow small town country folk.
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
Eric Adams, aka Xenomorphine.
And we're a bunch of nerds who like to get together to talk our favourite franchise of Alien versus Predator, with some slashes in there as well to make sure it's three separate things. Alien / versus / Predator. And
franchise thing.
Did you like the small town country folk thing? Did that feel appropriately thematic for
I
this?
got your reference there.
I'll get a skiffle back.
Small Texas town instead
Indeed.
of Colorado town.
According to this script that we're going to be chatting about today, which wasn't my initial plan for this episode. So I was like, I'm sick of doing books that I don't like and comics that I don't like. Let's do a film that I don't like. No, I mean, we've got a couple of
Adam does.
No,
so
Adam loves it,
balance.
yeah.
I do
Adam
like
loves
the
it.
movie. I will always admit that movie's got some problems, some big problems, but I was always happy about it.
Yeah, that's why your taste is always suspect. But
Adam, was it the first Alien film you saw, or am I misremembering?
No, I mean I had seen them all before that. The first one I saw in theaters was
AVP.
No, Alien the Director's
Resurrection.
Cut.
Oh no, you saw it.
2003.
Yeah, the year before, wasn't it? Before AVP, October 2003 for the director's
That's
cut.
right. Yeah, hoping for that AVP trailer.
Yes, that teaser trailer with the suits just being panned across. I remember the days. But no, I mean, we've got a couple of extinction-related episodes coming up, and I was like, that's going to take a lot of our time doing prep. Let's do a script review where we just have to read the script, and it's not as prep intensive. Why don't we do Eric Red's Alien 3? That should be funny. Enough time's passed that it won't be offensive. And Adam goes,
That's one way of putting it.
Offensively bad, should I say? That's the thing I'm on at the minute. And Adam says, let's do AVP Requiem. And Hicks went,
I had never read this script before. I mean, I remember.
Surely you had.
Maybe at one point. It had been a long time if I had, but I remember all the news hubbub about it with Ain't It Cool News coming out and reviewing the script. I went back and I looked at our old posts about that, and I guess Fox was pissed and had them take it down. Threaten legal stuff or cease and
for
desist.
Ain't It Cool News, yeah. They because there was a whole thing about it being unfair to review an early first draft of a script, and yes, to some extent that is very true, because I think a lot of script writers say just getting that first draft finished is a huge accomplishment in itself, and then you refine it and then you go from there. The first draft's never perfect, and yeah, I completely agree. It is unfair to rip into and publicize that first draft when the film was, I don't even think, had started production at that point. And as we'll find out, the film may not be the greatest film in the world, but it is substantially
better than this draft.
Better than this draft, yeah. I mean, the backbone is primarily the same, but there's a lot of details, a lot of specifics. What they do with the alien, it's still problematic in the finished film, but it is substantially better than this draft.
This is the first draft, isn't it?
Yes, this is the very first draft, dated December 2005.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's 1 year after the Anderson film had been released.
So. Yeah, and they were working on it for some while,
and the writer Shane Salerno was uncredited for the original AVP.
Well, there was a lot of Writers Guild of America arbitration over that one, because Anderson wrote the initial stuff and then Salerno did polishes, and there was some arbitration over that. I remember Peter Briggs talking about it because he was involved as the original writer. So they had to pull him in to, see how much of the finished film was sort of from his contributions. He's talked about that before. But yeah, so Salerno worked on the original and then was apparently tasked to get this one up and running. There was that earlier pitch that maybe not pitch, that earlier story concept that was talked about for an AVP2 where the Predator ship instead crashed in like Iraq or Afghanistan, one of the Middle Eastern conflicts. And it would have focused around like the military finding it. And I find that concept a lot more interesting.
Did they run with that for Sand Trap? Is that what that was inspired?
Well, whether that was intentional or not, who knows? You'd have to ask whoever it was.
I mean,
who
it
wrote
came
Sand
out
Trap.
with the AVPR DVD set, if you remember.
I do remember who wrote Sand Trap.
That big DVD set that had the McFarlane like battle statue thing.
Mike Kennedy. So Mike Kennedy was one of Dark Horse's editors, I think.
I mean, what's interesting is that this one has the lead character, Kelly. She's just come back from Iraq. So whether the seeds were planted in that. And I know Adam's got it, the Requiem behind the scenes book. It gives, I think it's Woodruff or Gillis, and they go through like there was a brainstorming session that they just threw everything in. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. It's worth it just to read that. It's worth saying that this version of the script, even the first draft, it's a lot toned down from some of the stuff they thought up during.
Yeah, well, Adam and I were just talking about that this morning actually, because he was like, "Well, how much of that was taken further?" And I was like, "I'm fairly sure it was just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks kind of thing." And it was just random ideas that ADI sort of threw Fox's way.
Because I had a memory of from some news story or something back in the day where we had heard that the Predator gun had been recovered by teenagers and they were using it to shoot cows or something.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was one of the bullet. Did you not go back and reread it?
Not that one.
No, so yeah, it was just at like the very start of the making of AVP Requiem book. There's just like all the bullet points of this brainstorm session that they had, where they were like, "Here's potential ways the predalien production cycle could work, and maybe what happens if kids get their hands on, the local kids get their hands on Predator technology and stuff like that." And that was one of the bullet points from the kind of stupid shit they would do. So it wasn't anything serious or substantial.
The predalien was originally going to be able to somehow naturally go invisible, because they said, well, the Predator can do it.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that just showed up in the middle somewhere. I went back and re-listened to our interview with Liam O'Donnell, because he did uncredited script work on the production while they were filming. And, that was the kind of stuff we asked him about, these. So we heard about this and we heard about that. Tell us about this kind of thing. And yeah, there was a lot of studio notes on this film by all accounts. So, I mean, that explains a lot in itself, but thankfully not in this particular draft. So, shall we talk about it? Shall we go over the big differences, of which there is one straight away?
Yeah,
Let's
this
open
one.
that Pandora's box.
Go on, Adam. Take it away, you fanboy.
So this main difference has been referred to, if you watch like the special features of AVPR, they talk about this, where the predalien dies on page 3. It dies before the ship hits the ground. It fights the other predators on the ship, and it causes the ship to go down and crash. But it is, I think it's just plasmid castered. I think that's how it's killed. So yeah,
I don't even think it's. Is it killed by the plasma caster?
I thought
yes,
so.
yes, no, you're quite right.
Basketball-sized hole,
Yes.
I think it says, in
And
its back.
To be fair, you know what? It was a little bit of a better cause of the ship crashing than the Predator just moving to the side and firing his
about
bolt.
that. one specific instance in the movie has always been like, wait, what? And that is where one of the predators pursues the predalien, fires his plasma caster at the predalien, which runs off and it misses it. And then he just turns and looks at the wall and fires it into the wall, and you see the exterior of the ship.
Yeah.
And that's when the ship heads towards the planet to crash. I'm like, well, why did he just turn and shoot the wall? So
it's a thing in the Predator franchise. Characters like turning and accidentally shooting. You know,
So-
like Traeger in the Predator.
Yeah.
in my mind, I had headcanoned it like, okay, maybe one of the facehuggers got out and was creeping up on him, and he had to like shoot it. But in the script, they explain it. They say the predalien grabbed his wrist gauntlet, which causes the weapon to accidentally fire.
You are reaching so far to say that's explaining it. This is entirely different situational circumstances, my friend. It makes much more sense in this script. They are actually tussling and fighting, and it works. That does not excuse the film.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it works in the script. They explain it. In the
yes,
film,
it
it's
works in the
still
script.
yeah. In the film, it's still like, wait, why did he do that? You know, why did he just turn and shoot the wall?
Like in Prometheus, where it makes no sense why the engineer just starts flipping out, whereas in the engineer's script, there's this like cohesive, logical reason for it happening.
He's pissed off. He's going to get chest bursted.
Yeah, he's woken up just to
Yeah.
I mean, there's some weird stuff. It felt like this was a really rushed draft because even before that, there's also a weird. He keeps on describing this predalien as having yellow hands for some reason, but it shoots through the hull, and then the third predator shoots his net gun at the hull, which is creating this, a vacuum, and he says that seals it.
Yeah, one of my notes is not sure how well a net gun net seals a hole into vacuum.
No. Like it might force the predator against the hull, and it
And
might
then
actually
it
make
gets
worse because the
sliced
predalien
going
gets
through the
forced
net.
through it. Yeah, because my thought was, well, hang on. I mean, if you ask, science versus Hollywood type things, some of them agree about would the newborn get sucked out or not, but this is within that continuity. So we've just seen little hole like that, and the whole newborn got sucked out. So this is a net gun. It wouldn't just get sucked out through that; it gets sucked out through many, many, many holes. So it'd be like pureed, just be this cocktail of luminous green flowing past the ship.
That was definitely one of those shit. I need to finish this first draft. We'll tidy this up in a bit.
Yeah.
The sort of moments.
Yeah,
and it was also the predalien matures within like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah,
something like that, and I
which
don't think
it kind of does in the film as
Yeah.
well. But it's meant to infer there's a segue of time, but yeah.
But I think that's just a problem with later entries, and I wish people would, and I hope Fede Alvarez does, take the time to slow down. That tension, that ratcheting it up of of tension and the slower pace. Let's stop rushing. Anderson added 10-minute alien life cycle. This one has a 2-minute alien life cycle thing. Even Covenant, that's. I mean, we don't know, but that's
30
fast.
seconds. The neomorph runs off and it comes back like half grown.
Well, I was thinking more the alien, but that did have.
Pointed out that in this one there is a scene with a homeless guy where it is inferred he's woken
Over a
up,
day or
he doesn't
two.
have any memories, and he's doing something completely different. Then it happened, and I thought, oh, this one is actually taking account of like the Kane's gestation period in that, and I always thought, oh, that did it better than the film did, because the film is very quick. But so it does factor that in. That was nice.
One thing I did like about the opening scene, though, and well, actually, I'm not sure if I like it or not. I think it would depend on the execution. But the predalien grabs a predator spear and uses it to kill one of the predators. Now, I kind of like the image, but it doesn't feel like it would be quite as natural as a predator. A predator using a human gun. That's a natural thing. I kind of like the idea of the predalien using a spear because it does it's a tool user. It's not
Yeah.
using a gun. It's not using a cloaking device. It's a little bit more advanced, but it's shows a little bit of intelligence to them.
Yeah.
And
Pushes that boundary a bit. It's like Alien Resurrection where the alien hits the like liquid nitrogen
mhm.
button, right?
What did you guys think about that bit then?
Yeah, I barely even noticed that bit, honestly. I was just getting through that fight sequence, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that because that seems like it kind of takes the whole tool user thing even a bit further. So I mean, it would depend if it's just grabbing something and swinging it back at a predator. Yeah, So if it looked like some fight thing with the staff, that would be weird for sure. Um, so yeah, I don't. It's hard to really give an opinion on that one.
On the other hand, I think the fault is more in line with why would a predator use a spear in a very close quarters combat situation? Because that's the one time you don't want to use a long thing like a pole or a spear. So, but I mean, if it's got it out, I can see the predator just holding it and countering sort of thing. But why wouldn't it use its tail? It could have gone. I think it's like you said, Aaron. It'll be all in the execution, how a director would handle it, because it could go either way. It could look really silly, but if it's just heat of the moment, dun dun dun, I could see it. Yeah.
And another thing I liked was the visuals in my head of them fighting on the upside down ship. What did you guys feel about that one?
Yeah, that'd definitely make for a cool visual if we saw a bit more of a fight sequence as the ship was in free fall going down. Like that would be a cool opening sequence.
Yeah.
Just, like Inception style, right? The room's just like turning or something like
Yeah,
that. That'd be pretty
that
cool.
that was kind of what I was imagining as I was reading it, and it also gave me vibes of, and I'm sure Eric will appreciate this. The idea of the zero gravity opening sequence from Peter Briggs's second AVP that we've never got, but that it only
That
exists
came
in
to
our
mind. Yeah.
imagination and these brief paragraphs that Peter Briggs has gave. But yeah, I thought that was. I was like, oh, that could have been cool. Probably, it probably would have been cut as it obviously was, because I'm sure it would have been a more expensive
Expensive,
sequence
yeah.
to.
I mean, you'd
Well,
have to make it clear that this Predator ship's artificial gravity is no longer active or something after it had gone through the atmosphere. Otherwise, it wouldn't
yeah,
make any sense. But
I suspect that was a victim of budget cuts because they would have had to have made a special set that sort of revolves and rotates. And Fox probably went, no, we don't want to spend the money on that. Just make it all. But I think if you give unusual environmental things to a director, that lets them play. That's their playground. That gives you the new ways to set shots up and stuff. That's great.
And
But yeah,
and
it wasn't to be.
to be fair though, I mean they ended up filming all the Predator stuff on green screen anyway, so that
That's
for the
true.
ship,
Yeah.
yeah, they would have
yeah.
like little elements. I think the Predator's like trophy table where he was cleaning the skull was part practical, but everything surrounding it was CG.
So maybe that wouldn't have been so expensive
Yeah,
to.
maybe.
I
You're
mean,
right.
they are a visual effects company as well.
Yeah.
Hydraulics was. That was, I assume, part of the reason. They got the gig. The directors come with a visual effects studio,
But
so
we also do know that I think Fox told them, well, you can either have several predators or you can have one that's a really well made suit sort of thing. So that this involved 3 predators. So I think that probably played
well. I mean, to be fair, the ship sequence did have multiple predators anyway, and
it did,
they were just
yeah.
reused suits from AVP.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a kind of a moot point.
They did an
Yeah, it could be.
effective job with that though, with like the
Oh
bone
yeah,
grill concept,
Bone Grill's mask was great.
and they all looked thinner. So like none of them had that bulky look of. Although if you could tell, the armor was still kind of bulky on the thinner bodies, so it did look a bit off that way. But but another thing about the script that differs from the film is when the ship crashes, it is cloaked completely.
Yeah, and
Well,
it's not cloaked when it flies in, but when it's crashed, it's cloaked.
wasn't the earlier trailers for AVPR, didn't it have the ship crashed while cloaked?
I think you may be right. I have to look at that.
So that might have just been one of those random, can't quite decide how we want it to look pieces. But yeah,
But what's weird about that is it literally now I made a little note of this. Yeah, it literally, the script says, because it's cloaked, no one has seen anything, and I'm thinking, but it's just described it's caused a massive crater, and everything. Like, if there's any witnesses, they would see a crash. They would probably also see like atmospheric friction as it's coming in through the atmosphere that fast. The ship might be invisible, but what it's doing is not invisible at all.
On the way down, the predalien dies to a plasma shot, which
anticlimactic, given
very anticlimactic, but fair to kill it with the plasma cast. I was like, yeah, okay, that's nice not to overpower it, but yes, it is massively anticlimactic, and I think this
fan backlash would have been huge to that.
I mean, what a giant waste it would have been to have spent all that money on developing the design and building a brand new suit to then throw it away 5-6 minutes into the film.
I mean, the first movie ends on the shot of the predalien. The whole first movie ends with that setup. So
that is
to kill it off that quickly.
All people talked about during, the run up to AVP, a lot of the fan speculation, a lot of the questions they were asked on, the set visits and the interviews and stuff like that was, is there going to be a predalien? And I remember one of the set visits, whichever outlet it was who went, they talked about seeing a box that was labeled hybrid, and everybody was sort of super jazzed about it, and it ends on this sequel bait of the predalien bursting, and it just would have been such a waste to throw it away. So I think it was a really good part on the Strauss brothers, on Liam's part to push to make the predalien, the primary antagonist of the film. Thoughts on the design entirely withstanding, that's regardless, but to have it be the central alien character was a really good change. And it also fixes it fixes one of the problems with the aliens in this first draft as well, which is
there's no explanation for how they're growing as a hive.
Yes, because you see the, like in the finished film, you have the stasis tubes with the face huggers, and you get an initial 2, I think it is, go out with a random adult alien that shows up somewhere in the crash.
A human one, apparently.
Apparently.
I was immediately thinking, right, if I was seeing that as an audience member, my thoughts go, why have they got a human hosted alien? Because they've clearly been coming to Earth every 100 years. So what they've been keeping it in the laboratory for 100 years didn't make at all sense. And also, they have crab-shaped stasis cylinders.
Yes, they did, which I thought was a little... I was like, yeah, I kind of see what you're going for, but...
You just need a tube, which is what they do in the thing. They just have those tubes. It does what it says on the tin. It works, but why? I don't even know how they would... What they'd be like, flat behind pane of glass and just, I don't know, crab-shaped cylinder. A cylinder, too. A crab-shaped cylinder, so it's a cylinder. Yeah, it's very peculiar. There's a lot of, I'm going to write this out in a weekend sort of thing, and that was one of those.
One of the things that was kind of funny too is the hunter and his son, Buddy and Sam. The son discovers the cloak ship by smacking his head into it. Just this little kid. I just imagine this little kid running into this cloak spaceship and dunk, and it falls down. It's like, come on, that would have gotten a laugh from the audience.
It would, unfortunately.
But it's not in this draft, but something Liam told us when we spoke to him, was one of the subsequent drafts they got. They did have the how the predalien injects embryos with the tongue.
Yeah.
Apparently, in one of the subsequent drafts they got after this first one, they had regular aliens doing that.
Yeah.
So again, it's kind of like, thoughts aside, on the specifics aside, having the predalien take over as the primary one does give them the flexibility to try and work in this, alternate breeding cycle. So
It
Again,
still don't make sense anyway.
Yeah, I
if
know,
you're
but
gonna have it
it
with
gives them
specialized design. Yeah,
It's
it
always
gives them
been
that
wishy-washy.
flexibility.
It's always
Yeah.
been wishy-washy, but it
But
would have been
works better than random adult aliens
if you
doing
just
it.
had this as some weird new ability adult aliens could have done, it would have created much more uproar. I think having it as the predalien being some sort of genetic abnormality of the crossing, or as Colin said, like a trait of a molting queen,
which I
works
only
better.
said after our forums. I noticed Colin
Yeah, that
replied
was
to
our
someone
fault.
who mentioned that as a theory, and after that point in the press conferences, they started saying, "Yeah, well, maybe." So whether it was
Look,
conscious or not,
the directors will take the good ideas from the fandom. You know,
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other day, who's working on an alien film, shall we say, and one of the things, you know, that came up in the conversation was Ridley Scott and the Walter David thing. How Scott had started telling people that it was a reference to David Gardner and Walter Hill, you know, the longtime Alien series producers. And I was saying that I'd seen an interview in which the journo had asked him, was this an intentional callback? And Scott says to the guy, no, but I'm going to start telling people it is because that's a really good idea. And I've never been able to find that original interview, and it pisses me off no end that I didn't save it. But yeah, you know, the studios and the powers that be are happy to take our good ideas and run with it.
Yeah.
So it's at this point after the ship crashes as well that we have our next big difference.
Well, just before you do that, in regards to the Hunter Son, I did notice, and from that point on, this particular script I did notice has a weird habit of giving characters surnames who absolutely don't need a surname, and it gives them really weird character descriptions that serve absolutely no purpose whatsoever. There are a number of like scriptwriter no-nos I noticed in this.
I'm just thinking of Eddie Morales' introduction.
Yeah,
he looks too young to be a cop, but that's what he is.
Yeah, Sheriff Eddie Morales looks too young to be sheriff, but that's what he is. What does that do for you as an actor? Or like, you don't need that at all. Like, give a physical description or give something that comes into the story, something like that. But like, there's oh god, there's some. We'll come to them later on, but there's.
But
some
no,
really
feel free to throw out any notables here.
I mean,
it's the Eddie one that I always notice.
I mean, here's one where they talk about like where they have that conversation with the pizza guy manager. It says Drew, 35, started delivering pizza when he was 16 for Domino's and never left. He is now the manager. What does it? How is that going to come out? Bernie Krakauer. Again, a surname not needed. Bracket, affectionately known as Bernie the Bum round Galveston because he wears the same overalls every day, walks his dog on the block.
While we're on this character, actually, why does Shane Salerno hate homeless people or poor people?
The mole people?
The mole people. Absolutely atrocious writing there. He hates the homeless.
There are some interesting written bits in this, you know, one of which was reported on by the AICN thing, which was right after the ship crash. For the first time ever, an alien footprint forms on American soil, and it's just like.
And not only does it write it, the script itself underlines it, like you're meant.
And it's in bold. Like.
And here's another one. This is really weird because it says Scotty bracket 23 skateboarder type bracket and Earl bracket 40 African American bracket. What, like an African American can't be a skateboarder, or what? Like this other guy's skateboarder. What does you looking at this as a casting director? You go, right. What do we need? Huh? It doesn't give you anything that goes into the story. It doesn't give you anything for the actor. It doesn't give you. It's very, very peculiar. And also there's the one with the pizza manager, like the works at Domino's. There's a weird amount of product placement in this whole
with
script
Kmart
as
too,
well.
and you literally have a moment where Jesse's like, Kmart has everything, and I'm like,
Yes.
that would have been
That
so
was
bad.
so cheesy, but it also made me think of the Justin Spitzer show, you know, Superstore.
Unfamiliar.
No,
That one.
no fans. Okay, it's a sitcom about, you know, basically working in a Walmart kind of
Right.
place, a Kmart kind of thing, and you know, it just they have episodes where they, you know, they have a gun. I don't know if this is the thing in America, but it's like Eric Harr equivalent of an Asda selling guns, you know, and it just made me think of the episode where they focused on this gun store in the middle of the superstore, and I just kind of had a little chuckle. It would have been fucking terrible. It works a lot better in the finished film with it being a dedicated
Sporting goods store.
sporting hunting
There's
store.
this whole wodge, this massive paragraph again with the pizza manager guy, and he not only like mentions, but these are real company names, and there's a massive He only needs to do it once or twice for the effect the character's meant to be having. But he says, "But what? Wall Street beckons. You're not going to college, so what factory in town do you want to work at? Valero, Bay ASF, Chevron Phillips, Monty the Huntsman. You want to go make my." Why has somebody paid you to do? I don't think they do that in the film.
Also,
so clearly it got changed. But
if they're in Texas,
company
oil is pretty lucrative, much more so than pizza delivery or management. Like, I don't think that's some of that's that bad of a suggestion. But
and they even talk about an old monster movie, Alligator, and they actually talk about Houston
that.
and stuff
Yeah.
like. No,
That was
that's
an
fine.
interesting
But
reference.
they talk about Houston. So clearly, when he was writing this, he thought, right, I'm going to vaguely research references to the location. And yet something like that, which you'd think, right, career opportunities, nothing. And it's an oil state. So it's kind of schizophrenic writing in places.
It
Well, I
was
think they
nice to
mentioned-
kind of show the limited options of the people there, you know, of giving it this small town sort of country feel to it. Yeah,
All the businesses are being laid off as well in this.
Yeah, so I mean, sure, as you read in this script, it is a little weird with the very overly specific brands and companies and stuff like that. But in terms of it's such boring world building when you consider the fact that we've come from spaceships and colonies and prison planets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of trying to do a little bit of character building, I liked them trying to give a little bit of desperation, a little bit of working class, blue collar to these very dull, down to earth kind of people.
Yeah, kind of. But I mean, even in the Ain't It Cool News initial script review, they mention like it feels like a generic slasher type thing. And like there's a part in this much later on where there's a little girl reaching down a sewer grate to retrieve a ball, and it does that typical fake out thing where the alien gets closer, and just as it's about to do, like you see it in Jaws movies, just as she's about to, the girl removes her hand, and at that point I thought, I kind of get why I'm having this weird vibe with this script. It
made me think of it.
Budget. Yeah, it feels like a low budget version of Stephen King's It.
Mm-hmm.
And except that they're doing lots of tropey, predictable things in it instead of upping the tension on that. But
yeah, I'm with you there.
Although people say, "Oh, it's very Friday the 13th, small town," but I realised that's where it's at, and you know, it actually shows you how scary that setting can be, and all this is just devoid of it. But you do have a lot of these fake outs and predictable things where you've seen it in so many other films, especially like Jaws sequels, as I said. And it just feels like Pennywise if Pennywise got like a Walmart mask, and it's just not.
There was kind of
not using the setting to its strengths. That's the scene that made me realize, oh, it's because it's sewers and small town, and they're having a thing coming up after a little child and innocent, and even the script talks about, you know, innocence and all the rest of it. I thought, he's either got subconsciously it on the brain, or
They
He's
do focus on the
definitely leaning in.
sewers a
Yeah.
bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, and the finished film does to an extent, you know, it very much leans into that cliche, cheap slasher horror kind of aspect of it, you know. It knows what it is to an extent because it goes very gratuitous,
but it's
you
not
know.
being like Stranger Things where it's doing clever things with
Mm,
those elements. It's not reinventing it. It's just, I'm a B movie. I'm going to do B movie things.
yeah, yeah.
Like, to the point where as soon as I realized that, I thought I had this visual of the predalien in clown makeup with a red nose. Oh, that's not the effect you want to have on a reader who's being given a script. Can I greenlight this, please?
Mm.
There's also a big difference in this draft to the finished film is that the whole dynamic between Molly and Kelly is pretty different. With it being more of your kind of, like, maybe you could compare it to Jurassic Park 3, like, divorce thing, where
Yeah.
the child doesn't have any issue with her mother coming home from the military. It's her husband. There's a strain there, and he wants a divorce now. And when the child finds out about that, she's kind of distraught about it. Whereas in the film, you have this distance between the mother and daughter, and it doesn't look like there's any kind of strain with the spousal thing. So
Well, first of all, you know, because I would like to throw in the things that I like. I love the "Mum, I don't speak Rambo" line from Molly.
Yeah, I did.
When
from a 6-year-old,
Yeah.
would they say that really? I mean,
well, I mean,
in
it was
a
a
kind of way, I can imagine a
it
new
was
type
yeah,
character saying, yeah.
it was funny. I enjoyed it. I thought it was charming, but
Mm.
I really don't like the dynamic that they went for in this script with Tim. This idea of him, and again, maybe it's just because of
Yes.
the times have moved on, and you know, all that kind of stuff. But this idea of him being super uncomfortable and awkward, and Mardy around the idea that his wife had gone off to fight a war and he stayed home, and everybody took the piss out of him for it,
I don't think
was
times have
very.
changed. That struck me as well. I mean, I saw at the end of it what they were going for, because when they do the, you know, the helicopter thing at the end, there's that payoff, and it's not even in dialogue. It's just purely stage direction, where it says he realizes that the thing he hated about his wife has now saved them. So there's that poetic irony, and I did like a little bit of dialogue that comes into it again, where she shoots a chest burst that's about to attack her daughter, and Ricky says army training, and she shakes her head and she says mother.
I
That
hated that.
some of the
No,
dialogue
I
in
hated
this
it.
was,
I
yeah.
liked that, but they're so few and far between that, aside from giving the daughter night vision goggles, which there could have been some other reason for it, it doesn't really come into the story that much. So I think this whole, yeah, it didn't really work, that whole thing. But there was definitely that subplot that's way stronger in this, about separation and divorce and that with the parents. And
I don't know.
yeah,
I just think I liked it a lot more in the finished film of it just being this, because it becomes this
yeah.
inverse of Ripley and Newt. You know,
Mm.
Aliens is her finding this surrogate child at the end of it, and yes, to some extent, Molly and Kelly do sort of make up again, but it's. Well, I suppose maybe actually it is very much Newt and Ripley, because it's a strangeness, isn't it, to
Yeah, it
start
came
with?
across that way in the film. A
Yeah,
lot of people commented on that. Yeah.
but I think I preferred it without this weird sexist military awkwardness to it that is in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, that might have felt dated even as far back as 2007, but I mean, it is small town Texas. So um another thing too is there's a bit more context as to the relationship between the brothers, Dallas
Mm.
and Ricky. They talk about how their father is working an oil rig and just sends money for the rent, and I guess their mother left. But not only that, you find out later that Dallas took the fall and went to prison over something Ricky did.
Which I loved. I missed that background in the film. I actually really liked that, and it went a lot towards making me really like Dallas in the script compared to the film. Thoughts?
I don't know. I just kind of liked how he was a thief and he went to jail for something he did, and like I just thought it was kind of an unnecessary like reveal, like, oh, it was really something his teenage brother pulled off. I'm like, really? Like it kind of caught me more by surprise.
Um, in terms of, it must be said there are a couple of moments where, whenever we've had these debates about like the newer generation of film, where they start to put self-referencing homage things, and there's this one that I thought, I don't actually, it might be in the film, I don't remember, but I remember reading it and going, oh, I would have cringed at that. Sheriff Morales, John McTiernan over at the mill is hiring, and the science teacher is named Mr. Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that he like adds that to the mountain of references that already. But although I read
There was
through
a
it and I was waiting for the gravestone things in there, and that wasn't in the script.
Well, I think there was a couple more in there. I think there might have been a Hill and a Walter, a David and a Walter, at some point in here as well. So speaking of Mr. Thomas, if I remember rightly, the Ain't It Cool News review, which we haven't really mentioned in this episode yet. Adam will have to bring that one up in a minute. They took the piss out of the survival of the fittest Darwinian kind of dialogue that was in the script. Apparently, that was filmed as well, but cut from any of the finished films, and that I don't think we've seen any.
Scene.
Yeah. So there's a sequence in which Mr. Thomas is giving this very cliched dialogue on, survival of the fittest, those who can adapt survive kind of thing, and it was filmed apparently. I think Liam told us it was filmed, but none of that has ever seen the light of day, and for very good reason.
It's intercut with aliens in the sewer, right? During that
yes, it is.
right.
Although when I read it, I thought to myself, they could have just ended it with him saying that to the class and then just cut to that scene. Although I did notice the script itself, it's another thing that the viewer will never be aware of. The script starts with that quote about Darwin's survival of the fittest. So clearly, I think Shane Salerno read up on that and he thought, oh, I'm going to use that in.
And doesn't Ricky bring it up later too? Like,
yes.
I learned this in class. It's like,
that is the payoff to him being in class and hearing that speech, and then he says, no, it's about adaptation.
It's such a cliched, low rent, script writing kind of thing, and I'm so glad it did not see the light of day.
Yeah,
in fact,
it was as powerful as Shane Salerno thought it was when he was writing it, I think.
And I think it was one of the working titles of AVP, wasn't of AVP 2? Wasn't it AVP 2 Survival of the Fittest?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Originally,
it was in the original the Anderson film. That says to be continued in
Annihilation.
Yeah, very video gamey. But
I think that was when Anderson expected to be coming back to write it, maybe.
Yes, probably. But yeah, I think I heard something about Survival of the Fittest.
Adam, why don't you tell us about that Ain't It Cool review? Have we really spoke about it?
I mean, we mentioned it, yeah. So we had reported on this when it first came out. Just like they did with the original AVP, they got their hands on this early draft of the movie, and they just tore it to shreds. They called it. It was something like, looking at it in the best possible way, it's a complete disaster, or something like that. But then they apparently got a cease and desist because they had taken down their review the following day. But when we had reported on that, we were like, well, this confirms that this is accurate. But I mean, to be fair, yeah, like you said, Aaron, it is unfair to review a first draft of a script that, I mean, there are a lot of things in this that are very similar to what we ultimately got, but there's a bunch of really like significant core changes as well.
And improvements.
I did notice at least 3 instances. I think Shane Salerno is a really big fan of Bishop getting ripped in half, because there's at least 3 times where characters actually get ripped in half by aliens. Never predators, always aliens. And there's also clearly he's deliberately making the little girl very mute-like.
Yeah.
Like the thing where she comes into the parents and saying what she saw through the night vision thing. It felt too much. Kids are not wordy. Kids give like one sentence, and when you give one sentence, it has more impact. I think if he'd have, obviously, he might have done it on a different draft or something, but she says like 3 or 4 different lines, and it's not even typically like da 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 da. It's like line, line, line. So it's even formatted that way, which weird in your script. You're not meant to do that. But you're not meant to mention specific song titles either, and he does that too. There's a number of little weirdness things like that.
So Adam mentioned as well, there's a fair bit more in the sewer, which I kind of miss. You know me, I'm a sucker for hive scenes, and I liked these extra bits of like Buddy and Sam hived up, and you know what? As callous as the script is about like the homeless people in there was, I thought, a funny little exchange of Ricky being like, "How did they get the sofa down here?" Which I thought was it gave me a smile. But all the hive stuff, I'll always miss that. I'll always miss this extended thing of like the human characters being taken back and secured. Even though it was stupid, but there's a shot of inside Sam while the chest burst is doing its thing.
In his intestine,
In his
not where it's meant
intestines.
to be, up by the lungs. And
Which
it
is
literally had you like doing a reverse shit.
And the script specifically mentions like this is the first time we've seen it from the inside, but I'm like, alien resurrection, like
well, AVP, the shot of Scar watching it in the alien vision, it would have been. I think it would have been like that stupid shot in Resurrection with it in.
It goes down his throat,
yeah, which would have been
I'll tell you
stupid.
what, there's 2 different cocoon scenes in this. One worked for me, one didn't. The one that didn't is the Buddy and is it Sam? His kid?
Yes.
That one didn't work for me because it starts with the kid saying it's moving inside me, and I'm thinking you don't know there's an organism. You would just know it really hurts. But it's so tropey because it's just full of all this daddy help me, daddy do this, daddy do that. And it just felt cruel and unnecessary.
Yeah.
Whereas the later one, there's the townspeople, they find the body and they have these red flares. And I was just seeing in my mind the visuals of these dead, bursty bodies with the red flare. That would have looked beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the visual of like AVP Eternal, the comic, where you have the big hive in the sewers and you see everyone hived up down there. But yeah, it did feel unnecessarily drawn out and cool and cruel with Sam and Buddy's death in the beginning. So the movie version was definitely a bit more.
Even the face huggers make them bleed.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, the film's pretty cruel with the kid anyway.
Yeah, and it added the whole babies and pregnant women thing in the film, which is nowhere in the script at all. Like that was
there's no hospital sequence at all in the script.
But what was missing from the cocoon sequence was clearly people have been getting face hugged. There's no eggs.
Yeah, there's just random face huggers that just
you
show
have to
up.
assume they all came from the ship, and it had a.
Could you imagine how much cooler that could have been if they're coming to all these conclusions and they'd never seen an alien egg, so they just see over, and then one opens up, another one opens up. It would have given that ticking time bomb, and instead of that, we have a sheepdog coming along, and the little kid goes, "Oh, he's scared," and it just randomly explodes with the chest, and then it literally collapses.
Okay, how pissed would we have been about that as well? Because I had been reading the script last night, and I said this to Aaron. I was like, "Oh shit, there's a runner in this too," and right after it bursts, they all just shotgun it in the face and kill it. And I was like,
"But they describe it as a normal chest burster." And I thought, "Oh,
really?"
Yeah,
I mean, if it's a chest burster, yeah, I guess it should have
with teeth. It doesn't describe it as having limbs. It just
as fans, if that would have been in the movie, we would have expected a runner if it's coming out of a dog.
With ADI involved, you would have thought they'd have spoken up about it. But I mean, it's the way it's written. Yeah.
I think in those bullet points of random ideas, they did mention, hybrids, and would have loved to have seen. I get a kick out of it in the expanded universe. The games in particular, do it. Is this image of all the different types of aliens together, and granted, we get it with the adults and the predalien together on the screen. But just imagine how cool it would have been to also have had some other form of hybrid, some runner, a predalien, and a normal adult alien interacting together on the theatrical screen. It would have been cool. But yeah, Adam, you're totally right. It would have been like, again, another anticlimactic moment of, oh shit, yes, we're getting a runner in this. Boom, 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 boom. Cheesy
I will
line
take this
about
away from you.
cheesy dialogue about no, I'm just a mum kind of thing.
I did like that personally, that bit of dialogue, but I didn't like what it felt very video gamey what they did with the dog. And again, the dog just burst collapse. I thought this doesn't feel like how if you're a horror film director and it's an alien, you're gonna play up that like you've literally got a pre-existing thing with a film with a dog in it, and it's nothing like that at all.
It does feel very, again, it's that tension kind of speeding things up thing. It's a very violent, drawn out sequence in Alien 3, and in this one it's very much kind of like done.
Blink and you miss
so
it.
so I missed the opportunity to have multiple iterations of the alien design interacting together on the screen. Not that they do in the script, but the possibility is there.
And also the first thing that came, as soon as it came up to the kid, I thought, well, it's not been face hugged clearly because it's not cocooned, but then it explodes. So my thought is then, why wasn't it cocooned? There are little moments like logic.
Yeah. So it makes sense that it was cut, as well as for the budgetary reasons of not having to then redesign, rebuild these additional molds. One thing I did think the script did a better job of explaining was Wolf's decision to go after the deputy, because in the script it's not really made clear that he's shown up to investigate the distress call, even though a predator apparently sends one. In the script it seems more like
he's
the
just
wolf just shows up.
And I like that about this because it's literally just it's being opportunistic like predators are.
I kind of disagree. I like the idea of a predator cleaner, and if they're dealing with xenomorphs, there's sometimes where there's one sent in to like, okay, this just needs to be like dealt with at this point. And I was listening to the commentary tracks last night, both of a bit of the ADI one, but mostly the Colin Strauss, the Strauss brothers and John Davis. And they had talked about that, and they were like, oh, we knew we might get some fan backlash, like, why is this cleaner predator doing this? And they're like, well, it's just practice for him, whatever. So, and I could kind of get that. I was like, yeah, this grizzled old predator, like maybe this human saw something, so he took him out and was like, oh, I haven't skinned a human in a while, this could be fun. Like, it could be something as simple as that. It's just practice for him. But it was kind of odd for me that this solo predator was jumping into this situation just for a hunt opportunity, which I don't know. I mean, maybe that would have worked, but I think it was a bit more interesting to have this new concept of this kind of cleaner predator that we ultimately saw in the film.
Well, it works, yeah, but the problem, one of the main criticisms of Requiem is that as we have Wolf depicted, he's clearly, or she or it, is clearly there to do the cleaning, and yet he does a lot of things like stringing dead bodies up that attract attention. It's a sort of counterproductive thing, whereas in this, it's clearly a predator that is aware there's been an incident, so it goes there to, there's moments in this where it gets to choose over human targets or aliens, goes after the aliens because it finds them a bigger challenge, but it doesn't care. Like, if there's a human there, it will go for them. It's not there to clean up, it's there to take out the big challenge.
It felt odd at some points
too. It doesn't dissolve things either. It doesn't have that blue liquid. He doesn't go around. It sees the cocoon bodies, doesn't care about them. It moves on because it just wants to kill the aliens.
There were some odd bits too, like where it just chases the family out of the graveyard all the way to the bus station. Wolf is just chasing this family to hunt them. I'm like, really? Would it just really be hunting this running family like that?
Yeah, but they had a gun. They had a gun. They were fair
that's the
game.
whole.
I know.
They still weren't a threat.
I mean, it's definitely first draft symptom there, but it's. I agree with Eric. I agree with you as well. It is the concept of these predators with specific roles, within their society. It's why I kind of miss the idea of the emissaries in a little fashion because an original intent was that they were perhaps scientists. They weren't predator warriors. They were some other different profession or caste or however the predator society is structured. And it's like you say, Adam. It's interesting to have the concept of these predators that have to go up and clean up after these fucking tourists that go around causing problems on the various hunting worlds. But to Eric's point, it also this is one of those problems of the finished film's a little bit muddly, and by a little bit, a fair bit muddly, and things like him just stumbling, he's a fucking tourist himself, stumbling across this situation explains things like, him making this impromptu decision to cause attention, to bring attention to himself because he doesn't care about it in that script. He's not there to do a job. But then you also have moments like, for some reason, I do not know why, the script does not say why, his decision to shoot the power plant is very intentional in the script. Whereas in the finished film, it's an accident, and it's one of those things that contributes towards making him like a fucking moron as he progresses through, the film.
He was shooting at an alien that was moving through the power plant. He might have not even known that was a power plant.
But again, he makes the situation worse. That's what Wolf does in the finished film. Is just a series of Wolf making things worse.
To be fair,
it's
it
very
doesn't matter to him
job.
if the power goes out. It doesn't affect his hunt much.
Yeah, but it makes the aliens easier to spread. So
yes,
it's the film does some things better. The script does other things better. There wasn't quite that even ground met, and this is just one of those moments where there was two versions of this narrative, this story, this concept clash for me.
Also, Tim survives, makes it all the way to the helicopter.
Well, does he survive?
Yeah.
Really?
And what's weird about that is that the nuclear bomb is glowing for no apparent reason. When it gets dropped out of the aircraft, it's just like glow, 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 glow.
Are we moving all the way to the end now?
Well,
okay, so like the
no,
movie.
No, well, maybe we shouldn't. There's still small bits in the middle to talk about. Although I think, to be fair, there's probably we could probably wrap up shortly talking about the end, because I think we've hit a lot of my notes in the random points of the discussion as we've gone along. So what I've got now is Dale is killed in that swimming pool. I fucking hate Dale. I really do hate Dale in the film and in the script. He's a jackass. He deserves every painful death he gets. But yeah, he gets killed by the alien in the pool in the script. I kind of prefer him having that agonizing acid burning through his face to it. The script also has one of those cardinal sins of Alien and Predator sequel crimes. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yes. Yeah. Again, the homage thing.
I don't think that particular line makes it into the finished film, does it?
No. I had a feeling there's a bit of dialogue I've sort of copied and pasted here. What I think, again, I think they were trying to do a Newt reference with a doll, because it's got Molly, Mom, Barbie is a shameless attempt by a toy conglomerate to exploit the TV-fueled dreams of preteen girls. Kelly looks at Molly. She's 6. And then to Tim. Tim, she's been watching a lot of CNN trying to find news about you. It's so cringy.
And she throws away the Barbie, too. It's like...
Yes, and there's moments here where Shane Salerno does comedy, and it feels like Saturday Night Live, the movie. And it's just not, no, don't do that. It's just not working at all, the humor in some of these. But yeah, I thought that was let's have the kid talk about dolls and toys and stuff. No, it doesn't work.
this also paints Jessie in a bit more of a negative light because in the finished film, she's genuinely breaking up with her boyfriend because he's an asshole and pursuing things with Ricky, who it's kind of inferred she has an older friendship with. Whereas in this script, that whole thing is a prank. Her bringing him to the pool, she's still with Dale. She was just bringing him there to get his ass kicked by all these other guys, and it's like, wow, like.
Well, she still denies that in this, but yeah, the film does a better job of establishing they potentially had an older friendship. You know, what was it? You always didn't know how to pick 'em, Jesse, or something like that during the pizza sequence. Although I do miss Ricky had a nice little jab. No, it was Ricky has a moment after he's got beat up where Dale's like, "Was it worth it?" And in the script, Ricky, after getting his fucking ass handed to him, is like, "It was worth it," which I feel is missing a little from the finished film. I did like that because it gave him a bit more of a backbone after having his ass handed to him. Give him a bit more strength
Yeah,
of character,
that
I
was a good
think.
line for sure. And Darcy was a bit more of a badass in this one too.
Mm-hmm.
The widow of Buddy and mother of Sam, who were killed in the beginning. Like in this one, it turns into more of a revenge thing for her, whereas in the finished film, she's kind of more helpless.
Yeah,
The whole joke of the government doesn't lie to people wasn't hers.
that's in there.
It was Ricky's bosses.
Who is definitely still the idiot in both
Yeah.
versions of this.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of nice bits of dialogue in this. We also have some fans who might look at the promotional shots. They might remember this thing where the directors were asked about it, and they said, "This will never see the light of day if we can help it." It's the one where the two black teenage kids, I think they're teenagers in this. They're written
Kendra and Curtis. Yeah, and there's three of them in this round.
Yeah, they're in this pickup truck, and there's an alien sort of crouched on top of it in the rain. In this, we get to see what happened. There's a Ripley and APC reference, which was so in your face. But I mean, there's a couple of they almost shoot them, and then Jesse says, "Don't shoot its people," and Dallas says, "Right," and that was just a dog. And I thought that was a nice bit of dialogue because it gets the point across. There's a part where Kendra, after all that happens is there's an alien, it goes on top of the truck, and it is a reference to Alien Resurrection where it hurts itself because it can't get through the metal of a truck, really. But it decides, right, I'm going to use acid instead of just going around the side, going through the glass. No. And it decides to hurt itself, use the acid, burn the acid into the roof of the vehicle, and driving this truck because they're little kids, and they see the other townsfolk who are survivors, and she sees them, and they hit the brake. The alien comes off, and they shoot it. That's all that scene involves. But there's another where they're negotiating, and Kendra says, "We don't have any guns." Dallas says, "We don't have a truck." She nods, they nod. That's it. That's the deal. That's efficient dialogue. I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's other moments where the dialogue is just not good. But that's what that scene contributed. And Kendra does have these moments in it where, again, it's another reference to Aliens, where Ripley is trying to shoot the gun and the alien is coming for her, and then she managed to shoot it. Exactly the same thing happens with Kendra. She's got a shotgun. She can't find the trigger. Not sure how plausible that. Maybe that's part of the reason the directors don't want it to be seen. But she can't find the trigger on the gun.
Well, there's another bit with Jesse.
And then she does.
There's another bit with Jesse and Ricky where she's like, "I don't know how to shoot a gun." And he's like, "It's just like a camera. You point it and shoot it." And it's like,
I hated that so much.
More involved. Like Hicks got more across to Ripley in that little
It'll
few
kick
seconds
some.
in Aliens. Recoil, changing a magazine. He hasn't even showed her where's the safety. When we're saying it's just point and shoot. It's not. It's really not. But,
yeah, I mean, there's.
Better in Aliens.
I imagine one of the studio notes was probably we need more action early on because there is no sewer fight between Wolf and the aliens in this one. The first fight happens in Kmart. And I guess when they had actually filmed,
other than the spaceship.
Other than the spaceship, yeah. I guess when they were filming the actual movie, they had a larger store lined up, and that they were talking about this in the commentary. That location fell through, and so they had to go with a smaller store, which I guess was really small. but they had to make it look like it was kind of a bigger sporting goods store. I think it ultimately worked better, like you were saying, Aaron, just because like Colorado, outdoorsy, you think of like sporting goods store. If it was just like a grocery store, that would, I don't know, it would seem.
Well, in the Kmart, there's also a thing where there's a bus that's held in suspension and they
Yeah,
get the
so
predator.
But that was
shoot it.
outside. That was like a bus
yeah,
yard.
it was an
wasn't it?
adjacent
Yeah, and it
like
feels
bus
like they were
station.
trying to do the Arnold thing with the log, kind of.
I
don't
hadn't
know if
thought
was a
about that.
reference, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
hadn't
sure
thought
a
about that
producer
one.
said swinging bus on a crane too expensive.
Yeah.
We're cutting this one out.
There was a fake out. This script has a lot of fake outs. You think there's a monster. There was a fake out in the sewer where the twosome, they're going along in the sewer, and then there's these long, thin, towering shapes, and they look up, and it's actually what you said, like there's homeless people, and you think you're being led to think they're aliens, because at one point you do see the alien and it's just a few feet away from them and it just lets them pass. But there's a lot of fake outs, and then there's the...
It was better in the finished film with the quick shot of the chest burster. Yeah. So another difference was the sheriff dies in Kmart, Eddie Morales. I liked him in the script because I think he turned into a bit of a jerk in the film. And I was actually I was actually genuinely sad when he died in the script. I was like, I'd actually really come to quite like him.
Yeah, and it did kind of build upon his previous relationship with Dallas a bit more in the script as well. The whole like disagreement thing in the APC that they have in the film, they still have that moment here, but everyone just agrees to go to the airfield.
Yeah,
as a single group. I kind of prefer the APC that we ultimately got because it is that kind of nostalgic connection to aliens, seeing the striker and everything. Like that's kind of cool, as opposed to just driving the truck through the streets. But I kind of agree with you. Like I get in the film the sheriff felt like he had an obligation to go to his people, and this was the official thing he was supposed to be doing. But yeah, it did feel like he was a bit too quick in the movie to just not consider the alternative.
So should we talk the end sequence then? The last part of the script and the last major difference. I think it had potential to be a really interesting atmospheric fight because the script makes a very big deal of it being this foggy kind of setup. One of the characters, I think it's Kendra, it's a very silly line, but somebody would think it, isn't it the weather too bad to fly in this, but I think it had potential to be really interesting because in my mind I was visualizing that cinematic from, I think it was the Soldiers Inc. AVP add-on. Do you remember that, Adam?
Yeah, that little teaser trailer that had the alien and the mist there.
Yeah, so I was picturing that kind of vibe to this battle sequence of it being, this incredibly low visibility and the aliens just kind of emerging from this vapor. It had potential to be a very good atmospheric battle sequence, I think.
Well, the other thing that's changed is the National Guard thing. There isn't.
Doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah, there's not that scene. He calls the National Guard, but there's no mention of them.
And somehow it's written in the script. They say they know we could be infected. They don't. I'm thinking, how does the U.S. military have a damn clue they could be infected? And so I think what they did, they replaced that with the National Guard sequence. So it's a similar sort of, soldiers being grabbed out of the darkness thing.
I do think the cinematography on the National Guard scene isn't great though in the film.
Yeah, it was a bit short and rushed. And there is a scene in this draft of the script too where they just drop the flare into the sewers and they see the hive, and then all the characters are like, "Oh, this is how it works. They need us to breed." And I'm like, would they be having this discussion right now? Like, so I don't know. Like that felt a bit. Some of the dialogue in this was just like, this is a first draft. So I mean, it's hard to fully judge it as that because a writer knows it's a first draft too. Right? Like the writer's going to revise things. This is about kind of getting the basic plot laid out, which, like you were saying, Aaron, the basic plot is largely the same. If we're talking the broad strokes, it's largely the same, but there's a lot of significant dynamic changes and detail changes that I think make for ultimately pretty different finished film. I believe there may be another draft after this one that we
Oh,
haven't seen.
there's going to be multiples. You know, there's at least that one we know of where it was the aliens doing the infecting with the tongue. You know, we've already discussed that. We know there was an intermediary there. There's going to be multiples. What's knocking around in the collector sphere? Unknown. But as we're finding out, you know, as of recording and probably as of editing, I won't have shared it yet. But, you know, I've just brought a first draft of Anderson's AVP.
Ooh, nice.
So
We would be excited to release that. And I just bought 2 spiral bound AVPR concept art books that were used for like initial development phase, I believe. So,
but my point, my point more there, Adam, is we are coming on the 20th anniversary of AVP
next year.
year, and I've only just found and purchased a copy of that first draft. So when I finally scan it up and release it for everybody, it's been 20 years that we have been nerding out online and talking about minutiae before this piece of, you know, this piece of the film's history, this piece of its progress and development is out there. So give it time. You know, I'm sure we'll eventually come across other drafts of the AVP Requiem as well, and we'll see what's out there.
I mean,
there's still Alien 3 scripts that we don't know, and Eric's going to bring up that treatment of Alien Resurrection. I know he is, because that's what he loves. Although, to be fair, the treatment's never really come out. The treatments very rarely come out, unfortunately, compared to the scripts. Oh, and I have another script sat waiting for me to sort out to release as well.
Ooh.
From a recent film. So, you know, there's still things, you know, this stuff coming for you guys and girls out there.
Couple last things I want to mention about this one. Dallas still gets the Predator weapon, and this one also definitively has the Predator lose,
which I like.
Yes, it's quite brutal as well.
It's very brutal.
He just
They
gets
absolutely
torn to
rip
shreds,
shit out of him,
pretty much.
And there was a cool moment where he takes a alien tail to the leg, which I liked. It kind of made me think of Starship Troopers a little bit, you know, where the bug sinks its spike into Johnny Rico. And I like, this is something I want to see in a future AVP. You know, I want to see the creatures injure each other and it carry on throughout the story. Of course, it's not really how it works in here, but I want to see more impact from their fights. You know, I want to see more lasting impact from their encounters with each other. And again, it's not lasting throughout this because it's all in a very final moment of the film. But to see him injured and then progressively get worse, you know, Wolf's still taking out the aliens to some extent, but they still keep coming on him. And
I mean,
I distracted myself with the innuendo there. I just had Archer going freezing in my head then. So yeah, it kind of reminded me of that flashback sequence, you know, on the pyramid. But perhaps a bit more graphic than it was depicted
I think on this,
AVP.
I did feel the aliens were weirdly a little bit better handled because they're a lot stealthier in this one. They're not going rah.
Yeah, you have moments in the script of like it pointing out an alien. Going on the ceiling and stuff like that.
It describes it as like a spider dropping from a web, and I did get
that was really good descriptive imagery.
Yeah, and the Brett sequence, it made me think, he's clearly trying to do that same, evoke that scene from it. But you did have there were these because when you're writing a script, you're not meant to do like a blow-by-blow thing. You're meant to give the gist of what you want the director to do, and the director interprets it. And this one does have a number of points where it says, you know, they don't say Clash of the Titans, but they say, you know, an inhuman and Titanic type fight, and they say they with both species being wounded and all the rest of it. The actual way the Predator dies, I mean, it's what's ironic about it is it's, it goes up against 3 aliens. It eventually gets overwhelmed, basically, but it does this thing again. It does this in bold, underlined. If the Predators won Antarctica, the aliens have won Texas. But don't put that.
And it continues on like the aliens have gotten revenge for 100 hunts over 1,000 years in Antarctica. And it's like, come on, like
it's not. Don't put. It doesn't add anything to the story. It's like when you're told about how to put in a script, how to put music, don't specify a track because the studio might not have the rights, B, the director might not, they might have a better idea. But I was given an example and the writer said, blah, 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 it's to give this, it's in this upbeat scene, blah, blah, blah. And the critic, he's like a professional scriptwriter, and he says, don't tell me the scene is upbeat, show me. And this has a lot of breaking of that show don't tell rule. This has a lot of telling you this is happening, this is about revenge, as Adam said, but it's not showing you. And it's always better if you're writing a script, and we are evaluating this as a script, we're just comparing it to the finished thing. It needed sometimes a bit more show don't tell, and sometimes it suffered from that. But yeah, they were just the actual way the Predator dies is quite a Valhalla moment.
I think it would have been a nice end for him. It'd go in. Well, maybe not, because he doesn't get off the wrist nuke, but
the airfield felt like such a boring location. I mean, they're just fighting on the tarmac. Like it's
that's where it's that fog imagery and that doing it in the middle of all this.
But I mean, you still had the pouring rain on top of that. I just thought the hospital was a more interesting location for where the hive ultimately was. How they had to move up to the hospital. They're on the rooftop. The helicopter's on the rooftop. Makes sense for a helicopter to be on a hospital. Like for them just running to an airfield, fighting on the tarmac, like it just seems not as interesting.
It's definitely more visually interesting and choreographed. Oh my god, choreographed. Yeah.
The thing
and
about
then you get like more interesting moments with Jesse and the shuriken and stuff like that. But again, that's Wolf being stupid. Oopsie, I just killed an unarmed.
But I mean, the thing about Requiem as the film, it feels very sort of 1990s zombie flick. And it feels, when you talk about the hospital roof, whenever I watch that, it makes me think, it feels like the director's just played a game of Left 4 Dead.
That's what I like about it. Like, I like how
there's nothing wrong with it, but it feels very Left 4 Dead-y when you're watching it. Whereas,
remember, you're in the minority there as well, Adam.
I know. I like the Resident Evil influence that the film ultimately had, but also Dallas does recover the Predator weapon in this one.
It does feel
kind of weird.
It feels left field in this one. Yeah.
There's no Miss Yutani after credits type thing in this. It is just they drop the bomb and that's it. The
nuclear explosion, flash to credits, and I was like, that's too quick.
Our heroes have made it into the helicopter. They're taking off to safety. To this bomb dropping them, taking them out. It is such a
anticlimactic.
It's such a sudden and anticlimactic ending, and we've used that word a lot in this iteration of the story. Anticlimactic. I mean, my note for it is, I dig the cold, brutal end, but it's so goddamn anticlimactic. Yeah. You know me. I like this cruel, evil, the world doesn't give a shit kind of stuff that we see in some iterations of Alien, and to one extent, I do actually really like it. But fuck me, it's just, and then the end. That is essentially all this is. Maybe if there was a tale to it, not necessarily the Miss Yutani stuff, just something that isn't so sudden, I would have still liked it, because I'm a sadistic motherfucker who just likes that brutal stuff.
The dark ending they were going to shoot with the special forces just taking him out,
execute him. Yeah,
that would have been kind of cool. It was like an alternate ending. Like that would have been pretty dark. But
I mean, even when we say like the military's reasoning for even if the military did somehow know about infection stuff. As soon as they put that in the dialogue, I know that as the audience member, I would have been going, well, they just quarantine you. They take you to Area 51 or whatever. They just quarantine you. You know, they wouldn't shoot you just for being infected. They do whatever, but they're not just going to go, let I kill you. It's very James Bond villainy like. So I prefer the way they did it in the film. But yeah, it feels too like I'm with Aaron. Sometimes I like these nihilistic endings, but I like them like Terminator 3 did it, where they had the balls to do Judgment Day, but John Connor and Kate, they're in that bunker and they're not having a happy time. They're what they know the world is ending, sort of thing. And it's that very somber feel to it. And if a lot of people agree that, you know, Terminator fans, even if they don't like Terminator 3, they love the ending to it. And it has that vibe. Here, it's just like a waiter takes the tablecloth and everything's standing and they say, no, everybody out, because it's just bomb drops, that's it. And you don't get this somber resonance to it. And there's no closure. It's just it's like the Alien 3 thing where some people get upset about Hicks and Newt because they've invested in the characters. And this is almost Shane Salerno going, invest in my characters because I don't like you. And I'm going to take my characters away and they're all going to perish in Inferno. And it will feel like you've had the rug taken away under your feet at the end. I think how we got it was the better way.
Definitely.
I just have problems with it being an F-22. It would have been much better to be a B-1.
Yeah, because those things don't have nuclear bombs. But
exactly.
So the film was better?
In some ways.
I think pretty concretely, yeah, it was
just some maybe little details that
I think
that
some
worked better
things
in the
script. Some things the script does a bit better. There are little script scenes that weren't in it, and I think they could have been in it if they modified them a bit, like the cocoon stuff. But there's other things that, you watch the film and you go, well, whatever you think about it, they did other stuff better. And it's like the Engineer's script versus Prometheus. It's like somewhere in between.
Oh no, Engineers is unequivocally better.
But there's other parts. I think we said that. But anyway, yeah, it's for me. It's like a scale balance thing. And sometimes I think, this has been more interesting, but then
I think on a technical level, the film is substantially better than the script. There is a few minor details in it that I think are just work a teeny bit better in the script. And there's some potentially other things that could have been interesting, like I said, with the mist and all that sort of stuff. But from an entirely objective technical point of view, I think the film did a far better job.
There's moments if you're judging it as a script, there are moments where the script itself undercuts itself. Like when the two characters, they're in the sewer and one sort of ribbing the other one about when they were little, they watched the Alligator movie and they were afraid to sit on the toilet because they thought that the alligator would come up. And they're basically one's taking the piss out of the other one for being scared of monster movies. They're going, whoa, sort of thing. And it's the kind of thing that a film like Scream, which is written and directed in a much more competent manner, it subversively used. It used those tropes, but it used them as strengths. In this, it undercuts would-be tension because it's ridiculing the other characters for being scared of monster movies. And I'm just thinking that whole thing could have just been removed from the script. You didn't need it there. All it does is undercut would-be tension from being in the sewers, especially when you've got this thing of tall shadows closing in, and okay, they turn out to be homeless people, but like that shot could have looked quite cool if it would been handled right. So
I think, like Aaron said, just the shot we get of the chest burster in the sewer in that little hole, like that's a really cool, creepy shot, and that helps for the tension. I think better than this weird reference to alligator, which I mean is cool as it is to see that, and I still need to see that movie. Tasha says I need to see that movie because she loves it, but Yeah, it's just interesting seeing this alternate version of AVPR to what we got. A couple other alternate versions of the story too. I mean, we have the Rebellion PSP game, which I believe I don't think they had the full script. I think they had notes and they had some footage, but they creatively made their own kind of different decisions, and it has the larger store in that one. I mean, it's a bit closer to the finished film than I think this draft of the script is, but there's still some significant differences in locations like movie theater. Um, and the ending. The other alternate version, I guess, would be if you count the Halloween Horror Nights maze. You know, the Hollywood version was an adaptation of AVPR, and it ends with this cool sequence of like the Queen Alien in this farmhouse, which I just loved that visual so much. Going through that, I was like, oh, that would have been so cool if that was like the thing in the movie. Like that would have made more sense. It's just like the comics. It's a predator ship that has a queen on it. The queen gets out. We don't see her to the end. And it's the same with the PSP version. We see a queen burst out of the ground. I mean, that also is a bit anticlimactic because there's no predalien in that game, and we don't have any confrontation with the queen. It just emerges from the rubble and then is nuked. That one also had Wolf definitively as the victor, surviving. So, yeah, I think ultimately the finished film has some things that are, at least I think, are really good about it. I like that final shot of the nuke going off, and you have Chet and Wolf in this kind of deathlock as they're both being destroyed. I know it feels like another like none of them won, and it would be good to get like a movie that has a definitive winner. And there's some things I like about the alternate stories we've seen from AVP, even this draft. Like we had discussed, like some little things this draft does handle better than we ultimately got. But I think overall, the film is the definitive version of this, well, at least compared to this draft. I'm sure hopefully there's a better version in the future. I know there never will be, but I want to see those filmed scenes. I want to see the deleted scene in the classroom with him looking at the clock and shit. I want to see what happened with Kendra and Curtis, like, because that would have had to have been different from the thing, I think, because, well, from the draft, because Kendra survives to the end in this draft.
Also, there's only two, or at least in the promotional shot, we only see two kids.
Yeah, there's Kendra
Whereas
and
in the
Curtis,
script,
and in
there's
this one,
three.
there's three. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll always enjoy it. I mean, again, opinions on the film, opinions on the actual quality of these alternate or previous, or you know what I mean, these older drafts, opinions on the actual quality aside, I will always find them fascinating to see these alternate versions in another branching part of the string theory reality kind of stuff, what could have been. So my opinions on the film, and my opinions on the overall quality of the script, but I will always be fascinated at these roads not taken. So I enjoyed this one. It's again why I suggested like Eric Red's Alien 3, when we were first talking about this, Adam. So even though we were talking about something I knew wasn't going to be objectively good, it was a fun time to go and revisit them, and I enjoyed nerding out on this episode. I've been a little bit tired of the negative expanded universe episodes, so to go and have some fun with this script one was a nice change of pace, a nice breath of fresh air for me.
There's a parallel timeline out there somewhere where we got this.
They just went with the first draft.
Yeah, and the first draft of the script was the film we actually saw. Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, it is always yeah, you're right, Aaron. It is always fun exploring those earlier concepts or alternate concepts. We see Alien 3 being the most famous because it just had so many, and I loved what they were doing at the end of Dark Horse's run, starting to explore some of those in a different format. Like, I really hope we start to see stuff like that again.
Right. Anything else left to say, gents? Or are we all happy?
So again, we'll have some further context when we get our hands on those concept art books soon. So we'll be releasing those. If you'd like to read the script yourself, it's in our download section.
Indeed.
I think it's the only AVP2 script we currently have. So hopefully we do eventually find another one.
If you're a collector out there who has a different draft of this AVP2 script, please feel free to send them over. That way I don't have to spend £600 on stuff from collected website. You know what? I never realized. Well, no, that's a lie. I always knew it was expensive to be a prop collector, and I've been listening to a podcast called Things Dreams Are Made Of, I think it is, because they had an episode with Harry Harris and Willie Goldman. They talked about like the pulse rifles and stuff like that. And they did a later one with Harry when he sold his collection, and it went all up on auction a year or two back. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is an expensive hobby that the layperson cannot get into. And when I'm having to sink off a fucking grand into a production used script so I can get it out there, I'm like, yeah,
we are dedicated.
I would just say, in total sort of review of this, it is worth keeping in mind that some of the film's flaws was primarily a very tight, fast shooting schedule. They didn't have the time they needed to shoot things how they wanted to. And of course, the darkness thing was not their fault. That was a studio.
Yeah.
So
even the director of photography for that movie, I believe, said like they ruined what I shot. I believe I remember him saying that at one point. But yeah, I mean, you look at that initial trailer, it was bright enough.
Yeah,
and then the movie wasn't.
One, yeah.
So,
well, that was color grading, wasn't it? That's an entirely different thing. But yeah, I mean, the film has its own urban myths there, shall we say? But yeah. So next few episodes should hopefully be some interesting AVP extinction coverage. We have a couple of interviews that are probably going to be one episode lined up, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. You know, I do feel like video games, and I'm sure Adam do as well, you know, their production and development is not as well documented as the films are. So to have this opportunity to celebrate the 20th anniversary, and talk to some of the developers on that game, I'm really looking forward to. And we shall, Adam and I, all being well, will be joined by Darkness making his podcast debut.
Oh snap!
To discuss our own, you know, a little roundtable review on the game. So I'm looking forward to that. We do potentially also have some cool interviews. Maybe again, it all depends on what falls into place and all that sort of stuff. But I'm courting a few people for some interviews, which will make a nice change of pace because, like I said, most of this year has just been negging on the expanded universe, and it's really been annoying me how much I've not really been enthusiastic for the most of this year so far. So I'm very much looking forward to some chats. And Adam, I've found Mike Kennedy. I've already sent him a message to ask about Sandtrap. So
nice.
maybe
that would make Mike for a good one.
Maybe
I would
we
like
can
to
get Mike on
Sandtrap.
the show.
Yeah.
So
also, yeah, we have a game coming out here in less.
God, yeah. Then we're going to be doing a bunch of interviews on.
We'll be covering that hopefully.
Dr. Sun, yeah.
Well, we'll be covering it either way. You know,
yeah.
Well, we'll talk to us or not, but
we'll have a review on that. I've been talking to one of the writers, the narrative guys on the game.
Oh, did you finally get a hold of somebody? Yeah,
I spoke to them ages ago. To again, we'll make sure we like the game first, but potentially, we could be talking to some of the people who worked on that. So we'll see.
Yep, looking forward to that one. It's always good when we have the big games coming because that's kind of how we got our start. You know, is the EVP, gaming space.
Mm-hmm. So where can folk find us online, Adam?
Well, you can always find us on our website, which is avpgalaxy.net, and we're on all the major socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you just search AVP Galaxy or Alien vs. Predator Galaxy, you're sure to find us. Also, we have our first affiliate sponsor, which is Entertainment Earths. So if you are in the market for Alien, Predator, or AVP merchandise or collectibles, head on over to their site. If you use the URL ee.toys/AVP Galaxy, it really helps us out. So if you're looking to buy some merch, we do appreciate that. If you find what you want through them, be sure to use that link.
And they ship internationally?
Yeah, they are US based. They're based in Southern California. But yes, they do ship internationally. And I've ordered through them. I've always had great experiences with them. Usually I've always ordered through them or Big Bad Toy Store, but Entertainment Earth has been great. Hopefully if I make it out to Comic-Con, we can check out their booth there as well. So
cool. Well, you can find me personally on Twitter at _Corporal Hicks.
If you'd like to follow me personally, it's at RidgeTop21 on both Twitter and Instagram.
Eric, are you?
I'm on the dark web. I'll send you a box of stuff for a few thousand.
So again, as tradition, we skip Eric. But thank you everybody for listening or watching. This has been Corporal Hicks.
RidgeTop.
Xenomorphine.
And we actually have a choice of sign-off lines here, because get to the chopper would be very appropriate considering how the how it ends.
Looking at the clock.
But looking at the clock will always be my favorite sign-off.
You know what we should do? We're signing off from the chopper.
No, it's not quite the same ring.
Let's do a bit of Molly dialogue.
No.
We didn't mention it, but
we don't speak
Aaron and
Rambo.
I are both sporting our AVPR shirts today for those of you watching the video version.
Mine's a lie, though. I survived the Midnight Massacre, which is Christmas Eve 2007. The UK didn't get it until January, so mine's just a blatant lie.
I've got Christmas baubles with it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They had ornaments, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never got my hands on one of those. Unfortunately, we didn't even have midnight showings in my state at the time, so I saw it first thing on Christmas morning. Goodbye, family. I need to go see.
Well, I mean, over here, cinemas aren't even open on Christmas.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Looking at the clock.
Looking at the. Are you looking at me? Oh,